Hey guys, welcome to the latest episode of PCCI. We have the usual gang here today, and if you feel a certain sense of professionalism in my voice, it's because we have a special guest today, and that guest is Rob. Rob, the first question that I have for you is very, very simple. How do most people recognize you? Do they call you Robelinda? Do they get to know you by your first name? How do they identify you mostly?
Well, if you're going to speak professionally, then maybe I should too. um,
Very soon we'll meander into uh, non-professional way of talking, but yeah, for now. So how
well,
do people? Yeah.
generally, it's only been recently that there's actually been physical discussion like that I've had to have because usually it's just online typing on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube. So the question never really got asked until earlier this year when I actually spoke to someone about it because I never have before.
Mhm.
Um, and I didn't even know. I've never had to say it.
For,
Um,
I, Before I ask you any other question, Aditya and Nishant are also in the episode. Aditya and Nishant, hi.
Hello.
I hope you guys don't mind that I already started asking questions to Rob because
No, so I'd like to start off with a big thank you to Rob, by the way. Like a lot of your videos are what is keeping us company during
Oh
this
yeah,
lockdown.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah,
And I don't know where you get those from, but I mean, I could have never imagined that I'll be seeing Bruce Reed bowling, while
my pleasure.
yeah, thank you.
so, which brings me to, and for any of the listener, and I'll be surprised if you haven't yet recognized who Rob is. Rob is Rob Linda, Rob Moody, but he's Rob Linda on YouTube, and he's one of the biggest, not one of the biggest cricket channel on YouTube. I don't think there is anyone who has more subscriber, and I'm fairly sure that he has more subscribers than many of the official boards. Uh, I haven't checked, but I am fairly sure. But Rob, you clearly started doing this before YouTube, and that is why, as Nishant was saying, you have a video of Bruce Reed bowling. Um, what made you get into it, and have you done this for other sports outside of cricket, like AFC, Aussie Rules, um, or any other sport? And if you haven't, which is a presumption on my part, but if you haven't, fundamentally, what is so different about cricket than other sports that makes you want to watch it and rewatch it?
Well, I haven't uploaded any other sports because, in my opinion, no other sport exists except for cricket. um,
Amen.
I can't see Ponting playing a hook shot in basketball, so uh,
Mhm.
um, cricket's just great. I don't like any other sports, to be honest. I can tolerate watching a bit of tennis in small doses, but yeah, I'm happy to watch any cricket. Lots of domestic cricket.
I'm sorry, I was just saying, how did you start? Like, why did you rather start recording it, or was it just something out of
Yeah, it was an
curiosity?
accident.
Hmm.
I was probably 5 or 6 years old, and uh, Channel 9 here in Australia would often uh, show the day's highlights late at night, and my dad would record movies and just let the tape uh, record all the way to the end. And when he'd rewatch the movies during the day, because I wasn't up that late to see them, uh, often there'd be Richie Beno coming on, introducing the cricket. And after a few months, I thought, who is this guy? Why does this old guy keep coming on going, welcome to the MCG? And so eventually I just watched them. And then I thought, this is actually pretty good. Um, and so it's around the 1983 period.
Wow.
And so then I thought, I should tape these myself. And I was the only one who knew how to use the VCR in the family. because the rest of my family were technologically useless. And even though I was only 6 years old, I sat down and I studied that VCR, his big, clunky, massive machine. And so I started to time the highlights for myself. I did that for a couple of years, and then I started to record the actual matches themselves because they seemed really interesting. Yeah, I could have. I did it for a few years in the 80s, but until I got to a point where I was old enough to actually understand the game and all the intricacies of the laws and the strategies. This would have been around when I turned 12 or 13 in the late 80s, and then I realised that how cool it was to have all these old matches, that no one else seemed to record that I knew of, and I just kept going and didn't stop.
So, Rob, does that also mean that you have a lot of pre and post match stuff? So, say all the pre match shows on Channel 9 and mid innings shows and stuff like that?
Yep, every single one, yeah.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
So my impression of, and this is just like a general question because since you mentioned that cricket, there is no other sport but cricket. My impression of Australia over time is that Australia is obviously a sporting country, but and cricket definitely has a place in that pantheon of
Yep.
sports. But it seems like other sports, like Aussie rules, for example, or even
Yeah.
soccer these days, is gaining more popularity
Yep.
compared to cricket.
Definitely.
And how do you see that, like, affecting cricket in the future, in the next 10, 20 years?
Yeah, I think, I know personally, I feel like cricket's definitely going down here, but not to any, terminal lengths or anything. But certainly, Aussie rules is phenomenally huge here, and it drives me insane because I can't stand it. and I'm here in Melbourne, in Victoria, and this is the state of AFL, and it dominates all the news, all the sport websites, and it's crazy. And I've never understood the game or liked it at all. But definitely, soccer is the next one that's gaining massive popularity. Cricket's still second, and the viewership and physical participation levels in cricket is still pretty big. It's just that my feeling is in Australia people tune out when the summer finishes, and there's always a bit of a long gap before the next summer. But whereas with football, the interest is there 12 months a year. As soon as the season ends and cricket's supposed to start, they're still talking about football for the next 2 months. So
Yeah.
it just keeps going, and not just in Melbourne, in Queensland and New South Wales. That's where Aussie rules is not so popular, but they have the rugby league. So that's exactly the same situation up there as we have down here with the AFL. So cricket's always playing second fiddle to those sports in terms of media coverage and radio coverage in general. So it's frustrating, but hey.
It is a national sport, though, right?
Yep.
I mean, yeah. No, I was just saying, so even India's national sport doesn't really get that much attention. But cricket does. It's hockey, but yeah.
In India,
Go on.
nothing else gets attention.
Yeah.
Channel 9 has been at the forefront of cricket coverage all over the world. So I remember like waking up to watch every single test match being played in Australia just because of the Channel 9 commentary team. Channel 9 made way for Fox Sports to eventually take over a couple of years ago. And so what do you actually think does that take away a lot of charm about the Aussie summer to begin with? And how does that impact the way the sport is perceived on TV at least?
I think there's been generally a huge positive reaction to Fox and Channel 7 taking over, only because Channel 9 was not going so well. No one liked the commentators, and the coverage was stale, they refused to put any female commentators on, which every other broadcaster was doing. And yeah, there was the turning point came a couple of years ago when the last year that Channel 9 had the cricket, they put up a social media post of the picture of their commentary team, and it just said, here's the commentators looking forward to the summer, and it was all just, white old men. And the backlash was just crazy. It's like, come on, you've got these stellar female commentators, Ishiguro and Alison Mitchell, to name a few, and who are excellent. Um, and you've seen Fox and Channel 7 really try hard with their innovation, and they've got great commentators. I mean, everyone has seen Ricky Ponting evolve as a commentator. His stuff on the Big Bash was so insightful, and everyone was licking their lips to hear him commentate on Test cricket because he just has such a awesome cricket brain, and he just knows what's going to happen. So for me, that's the best thing about Channel 9 losing the coverage, is just getting to hear Ponting's insights, which everyone wants to hear. I mean, some of the Indian commentators are really good. Some are not so good. But it's the same in every country. I mean, Jay Surya was great as a player, but hopeless as a commentator.
Some of our biggest complaint about Indian commentary generally is that they don't seem to know a lot about the sport outside of what is actually played in their own countries.
Yes.
So that's something we always keep complaining about when it comes to commentators in general and cricketers turned commentators in general.
Yeah, and that was definitely a huge thing here with Channel 9, because you'd be screaming at the TV when, Bill Lawry hadn't heard of some player who's already got 8 Test centuries. It's like, Bill, what are you doing? And Mark Taylor was the same. They actually don't show any interest in cricket outside of what they're watching, what they're commentating on. Whereas, you've seen other guys come in who are absolute, genuine fans. I mean, I can remember India's tour here in 2014 where Kohli got the 400s, and James Brayshaw in the first test just said, look out for Kohli. He's going to score at least 3 centuries this series. He's that good. And, I knew who Kohli was, obviously. It was 2014, but lots of people were like, get out of here. Who's this guy? No one cares. And, yeah, he actually did know that he was that good. And it was nice to see, because the other commentators at the time didn't say too much about Kohli, but he was already averaging 50 in one-day cricket.
So I think what really grinds my gears about it is these people who have only played Tests and ODIs also commentate in the IPL and the Big Bash, and they have absolutely no idea about how T20 works.
Sunny G. Sunny G.
Yeah, I mean, when Sunny Gavaskar, when he says, like, when a batsman hits a 6 and on the next ball he takes a single, when he praises it in a T20, I'm like, come on. I mean, yeah. It's just...
So, Rob, just to add to this discussion, I just wanted to make a quick point. And I understand that, the whole cricket universe is kind of India-centric these days. But one of the things with our pod, and one of the reasons that some people do not like our pod, is that we've been very critical of this over-dependence on India, or India having such a huge amount of...
BCCI in general. So,
I mean, our name kind of suggests it, yeah.
It's a satire. But like, and that's why I just wanted to say that please feel free. I know that you're not holding yourself, but even if you are, just don't.
I promise.
So moving on to your videos. So so since you were saying that you recorded highlights, right? So I know, like, back in the day, from my memory as a kid, the ESPN Star, which was the most common sport channel back in India, they actually had decent highlights after matches, but nowadays I think, or what do you think about the highlight? Like, do you even find a proper highlight somewhere? And if you and when you're cutting the videos, like how do you go about it? Um, do you think what's shown on TV, or especially like all these cricket websites like Cricinfo and all, they have absolute like garbage
Yeah.
highlights, right?
Especially for Test cricket.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
they would like spend like 30% of the highlights would just be a slow motion of a whatever, a celebration or something. So
Yeah, you're bringing back bad memories now, but I remember definitely being really angry at Channel 9 and then Fox in the 90s when they'd show highlights, and they'd just miss out so much stuff. And, there'd be the caption on screen, it'll say like, Steve Waugh 75 with 10 fours. And I thought, you've only shown 4 of them. Like, so that actually forced me to go and record the full matches after that, because I got so frustrated with seeing the poor highlights. And I've always hated highlights for that fact, just because they're so disappointing. And Fox used to do some really, really pathetic things where, just say they had 2-hour highlights for a day's play. This is when they'd show overseas tests in the 90s and 2000s. And they'd show 2-hour highlights package, and they burned through like 5 hours of the day's play in the first hour and miss out stuff, and then show the last hour ball by ball. You thought, what are you doing? Like, you've missed out boundaries and anything interesting. And how many interesting things go on in the day's play, small things here and there that never get shown in the highlights. And I think of how many things are literally lost to history because they're not in the highlights.
A batsman a batsman being worked out, for example, in a session.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's something that never gets conveyed in the highlights package these days.
Yeah, and so many people ask, do you have the 2 balls leading up to that dismissal? I'm like, no, because I've just got the Channel 9 highlights, and they only showed the 1 ball on the over. And so, yeah, so there definitely became a point where I got really frustrated just for myself that, I wasn't able to see what actually was going on, especially, and even more torturously, they'd mention it in the highlights that this has been a great over so far. And those last 3 balls were amazing, and you thought, show the balls. They would drive me nuts.
Has any production company ever reached out to you to curate for them? I just thought of this.
No, but I think you always think that it might be nice, but no, I don't think it will happen. But there's a particular stigma attached to being a YouTuber. So YouTubers are generally not regarded as being, I don't know, capable of doing a professional job. Yeah, so no one's reached out, and I wouldn't expect them to.
Yeah, just to add to the curation part, so the thing that I find really interesting, that you have a lot of videos from elsewhere, right? So you just don't have only cricket videos from all the cricket being played in Australia, but you have a lot of stuff that Australia touring Pakistan, for example. And I recently saw that you uploaded something about the Donald versus Sachin session in Durban or Cape Town. I don't remember very well now. But all the content is from local host broadcasters in India or Pakistan, for instance. How do you manage that?
Well, we got pay TV in Australia in '95, and they would show lots of non-Australian games, which was fantastic for me, because up until then, you rarely see any games that don't involve Australia. Only when the touring team would come and they play the Tri Series in this country. But aside from that, you wouldn't see any Test matches. So it was actually pretty exciting when we got pay TV in '95, and the first thing they showed was West Indies and New Zealand from West Indies in early '96, and I couldn't believe it. I thought, wow, I didn't think these teams knew how to play Test cricket, because you never saw it. and then India toured England in '96 just after that, and that was mind blowing to see, because I'd never seen anything in England aside from Australia playing. And obviously Tendulkar was amazing in that series.
Was it the
Uh,
Ganguly's debut series, the
yep,
Lord
that's the
Ganguly?
one. Yep. So India and Pakistan. So yeah, actually getting to see Syed Anwar bat against England all day, and yeah, Ganguly, Dravid, that was pretty amazing. But yeah, certainly back in the 80s, late 80s and 90s, I used to find just unorthodox ways to find other fans around the world who also tape stuff. So some pretty unorthodox ways. There used to be things like a classified section in the back of cricket magazines in England and Australia, and I would just put feelers out, literally writing physical letters and sending them. And I would actually have a list of pen pals around the world, and we'd
Wow,
actually send videotapes to each other. And
that's
it was
awesome.
very expensive, but very expensive. But yeah, so that's how I would get the occasional bit of footage that I hadn't seen before. I had a great contact in the West Indies, who had heaps of stuff, but I think he died because there was a it was it was a long time ago
A
now.
lot like
But
cricket in West Indies.
maybe he was responsible. But it was, uh, I can remember getting ball by ball of Brian Lara's 375 from this guy, which was incredible at the time because how else would you get it? Um, but I was pretty desperate. Obviously, when it happened, in the morning you wake up, you see the news. Oh, Brian Lara's got 375. You're like, what? How can I get this? How am I going to get this footage? I've got to have it. So yeah,
So
yeah,
Rob, yeah. So then versus now. So you spoke about how you had access to all this cricket from all over the world, right? So then versus now, do you think things have changed for the better or for the worse in that context, in terms of being able to access cricket from all over the world? Because
it's
that's
definitely
something which
easier.
is oxygen to the sport, right? In any
Yeah,
country.
yeah. Well, at least these days, every series is actually televised. I mean, back in the 80s, everyone knows how bad uh, coverage was, particularly West Indies and India and Pakistan. Uh, there's entire test series where no one's seen anything, which is crazy. Um, everyone talks about the 1988 Pakistan tour of West Indies. I know it was only shown in a couple of countries in the West Indies. It wasn't even shown in the whole region. Um, and like the first day night one day in India, was 84. How is there no footage of this? Um, it's just crazy. So at least now everything is televised. So there's access. Uh, you know, some way you can actually get to see it, which is great. So there was, say, Australia's tour of Pakistan in '94. Where Salim Malik got the double hundred. I mean, I was staying up all night, trying to find some radio station that would
Wow.
miraculously have coverage. Because there was nothing, no video, no audio, nothing, just a scorecard in the newspaper. So that drove me nuts. So yeah, I think it's obviously good now because there's no tour that a team will play that's not televised. So that's great.
Just a tangent on what you just said. So for the longest time growing up, we had obviously 83 World Cup highlights were everywhere, and you could see 92 and I
Except Kapil.
except that couple innings, of course. But like
Yeah,
for the longest time, I never saw any highlights from '87, and it used to drive me nuts. I think the first time that I saw any footage of '87 World Cup was on YouTube. I don't think before YouTube it had like even the highlights were ever played in any like local broadcasting
yeah,
station. But going back to what you just said, like it as a content creator, you were talking about having footage of Lara's ball by ball. So it must be like when you watch cricket now. I'm sure you watch a passage of play and you're like, boy, this will be good highlights. Like one of my most favorite videos that you've uploaded is that over from McGrath to Nasser Hussain, where
Yep.
he basically sets him up for the final ball to for an edge. So how does how has becoming a popular content creator impacted the way you watch cricket?
Well, I can't upload anything that's recently been televised, so I'm mainly just going off my memory of matches
Mhm.
uh, when I'm finding new things to upload. The way I watch cricket now, I don't ever think about this would be great to upload in 10 years when I'm allowed to. Um, but so no, but the way I watch old matches is different because, I might watch a whole day's play from 1994 and find 20 things that I could upload safely. Um, so, and I spend most of my time watching old matches anyway. So, um, but yeah, if I'm watching something that's recent or current or just on, then yeah, I'm just watching it and enjoying it, not thinking at all about YouTube or anything because there's no point. I can't upload anything
That's a blessing.
that's recent anyway. But and the good thing about watching the old stuff is that I get a new appreciation for it every time I see the old stuff because there's things I've missed all the time. Even just commentary and just the terms they used back in the 80s were so different, because there were things that were being said in the 60s and 70s that just don't get said anymore. So, so I definitely look at old cricket differently now.
So, what do you think about since I mean, like all those old things that you're talking about, which were which you think should have been preserved better and shown to a lot of people, and I'm sure a lot of these cricket boards are sitting over that content. I see some progress being made by Cricket
Yeah,
Australia's YouTube channel and the English Cricket Board. They sometimes, they like the Australian channel has the from the vault section. Although I wish it was long, it just has like 5-7 minutes kind of highlights. But
yeah,
what do you
they're
think? Like,
lazy.
yeah, yeah, and obviously it's not that well cut of highlights, which with the way I would like. But
It's terrible.
what do you feel about? Do you think like some streaming service or something can collaborate with these or do something with
Yeah,
it? Like, would you?
Netflix for sports, for example.
yeah. Well, yeah, it'd be nice. I mean, they've talked about it for years. I mean, Apple was going to work with Cricket Australia, which they actually did do, and make a cricket app on the Apple TV uh, platform, but it was just stupid. It was like a 5-year-old. He was in charge of it, which was so frustrating. Then a few seasons ago, before Fox and Channel 7 took over, Optus had the contract with Cricket Australia, and they did show a lot of old cricket ball by ball on their dedicated cricket channel, and that was really good. But it didn't have any. It was only Aussie viewers that could see it, and you had to be subscribed, to Optus Pay TV. So essentially useless. But we all know the cricket boards have got all this footage. I mean, the matches have already been played. I mean, they're just sitting on it doing nothing. So,
Yeah,
and then they put something out like a full day's play, or in India they're doing full matches. It's like, well, always do that. I
yeah,
mean, you're not getting any money or any more people watching if you're just putting the matches, in the closet, sitting there doing nothing. I mean, surely there's money to be made, and that's why it's frustrating when they come down hard on others who are uploading to YouTube. It's like, well, we're only doing it because no one else is.
yeah. I mean,
It's like,
BCCI doesn't even have an official YouTube channel. I think
oh, it's just,
it's just on their
yeah,
website. Even the IPL highlights, you have to go to the IPL
And
website.
that's a very clunky website in which it's
Yeah,
really
yeah,
hard to find those
yeah.
videos.
yeah.
And if you're watching it
And
on a phone, it's horrible. Like,
And what I find the funniest thing ever is that when Star Sports are showing the ball by ball matches recently, all, all of it is like India versus Sri Lanka, which you got to be kidding me. Why? Why? You may as well just say Kenya, Zimbabwe. Like,
Oh, so
oh,
a quick tangent on this. So as a viewer, some of your videos that I like the most are actually the videos from, say, a Sheffield Shield game. Actually, one of my favorite videos of you, which, and it's not really even a significant video, is of the emerging cup tournament that happened in the early 2000s between the
yep,
domestic champions of
yep.
India, New Zealand, South Africa, and Australia. And you have uploaded like 2.5, 3 minutes of something. And I personally would love to see something like that come up. And I'm sure there's a market. There are some people who definitely pay for something like that to be seen. But I don't know why this doesn't happen. But when I uh, look at your channel, and if I were to search for Robelinda2 and cheating, there's a bunch of like video, and I
And
think
also umpires, you
so.
Yeah,
So there's a separate discussion I think that we could have, or we should have rather, about the process that you decide to name a video that you upload. Um, but before we talk about that, let's talk quickly about, um, as a cricket viewer for almost 4 decades now, what are your thoughts on cheating? And because what I'm trying to say is that people reverse swing, right? Now, when you reverse swing, you're scruffing the ball most definitely. So there's a line that you draw at some place that this is not cheating and this is cheating. So for you, where is that line? And what do you think about like cheating broadly in cricket? And especially like I was reading a piece by someone on Cricinfo, and they said that ICC might legally allow them to
yep.
scruff the ball. So is it not cheating now? So like, what are your thoughts on cheating? And then if you could talk about how you name your videos.
Yeah, cheating is yeah, it's
But what
obviously
is
a
cheating?
touchy subject for each country. I mean, there's no country that hasn't cheated. So
Yeah,
um, that's just it. There's so many different forms that people have regarded as cheating. Some things are really small and get blown out of proportion. Some are big and deserve, Um, uh, but it's interesting which things particular countries try and do or have done in the past. Like I haven't seen any New Zealand bowlers try and scruff the ball or use sandpaper or mints or bottle tops. Um, whereas you've got the English who use the mints and after them with
Arabians.
the dirt in the pocket. Um, Obviously, the Pakistanis have had the bottle tops, and they don't say they didn't do it. Aussies and the sandpaper. Then of course there's nicking the ball behind and not walking. Which I think that obviously it's not cheating. It's just that when there's a huge nick.
yeah.
But then
The-
again, is there a batsman who's played 50 tests that hasn't had 10 innings sawn off by a bad decision? So why would you walk?
yeah.
For every innings, that they've got lucky, they've probably had 5 or 6 where they've been sawn off by a ball that's pitched outside leg, or one that's hit the elbow and got given out caught behind, or missed the bat altogether and got caught behind. So, yeah, that's where the umpiring. Well, that's, the umpires are getting paid to make a decision, the batsman's not, which is DRS as well. The batsman's not trained to use DRS, or paid to use it, So, yeah, umpires should do the job.
What are your views on man kidding? Do you think it's cheating? Yes. It is not. Yeah, I also think that.
Yeah,
It's.
not cheating.
I
Stay
mean,
behind the line.
Yeah, exactly.
But this is a very cricket centric issue, right? Because cricket is probably one of the few sports that has the fuzzy spirit of cricket zone, which is legal and not yet legal and debatable and so on. So
Yeah, well, the spirit of cricket only ever comes up when there's a grey area in the rules, and remember the underarm ball wasn't cheating either. I mean, it was actually in the laws.
In the laws.
so,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so if you're picking and choosing which of the laws aren't set in stone and which ones are neither here nor there, and whether the spirit of cricket applies to that or not, I mean, it's just a mess. So, and I think over the years, as each incident happens, there's some like the Mancat thing. I mean, it's out. It's not cheating. And whether it's against the spirit of the game or not, it's like, well, players get paid millions of dollars these days. When does the spirit of cricket apply? This ball, the next ball? Like, come
No,
on.
some people had this defense, like when Ashwin Mankar did, I think it was Joss
Yeah.
Butler. So they were like, you should have reminded him once, and then if he keeps doing it, then it's out next time. I don't know what it means. Like, so does every batsman need to be reminded once every innings? Because Joss Butler has been out that way before also.
Yep.
So what about
Yep.
that bonding then? So
Yeah, no, I think it's pretty clear. I mean, when you go up learning cricket, they tell you to put your bat behind the line and wait for the bowler to bowl the ball. Why would you? If you're going to be halfway down the pitch as he's bowling the ball, you deserve to be run out. It's pretty dumb. I think it's dumb. Yeah.
So Rob, on that topic, so your videos are generally generous to every side, right? So you are not extremely partial with your titles to any particular side. But is there any video for which you have received a lot of flack from, say, very touchy viewers?
India.
And YouTube is full of them, right?
Yeah, well, I've stopped reading comments a few years ago because I can't keep track. There's thousands a day. I mean, I literally don't have enough time in the day to sit down and look at every tweet, every comment on YouTube. I mean, there's literally thousands of comments a day. I mean, even overnight, there was 2,789 comments on videos overnight. I mean, I haven't got time to look through all those. But when I didn't have so many videos, it's really only a couple of videos, anything to do with that test match in 2008, and anything to do in general with just the Aussies doing anything cheating, or the Indians doing anything cheating. So basically, if the internet never pointed out anything those two countries did, there'd be no content.
So do you think twice before, like, let's say you're putting out some video where you think might be, this might anger like Indian fans. So do you think, I should probably title it in a way which softens the blow or something, or do you just go full on that, just click on it,
Yeah. I don't think about it too much. I mean, the match has already happened, so how much more problems can it possibly cause? But yeah, people always said early on, see, from my point of view, when I started the YouTube channel, there was only a couple of other YouTube channels that showed cricket. And there was one channel in particular that did post pretty provocative titles, and people loved it. But it got shut down. And people were saying to me, "Oh, you should upload a few videos and do the same sort of thing." So I did, and then everyone loved it and hated it. and then people would suggest titles and everything for me, so I just went along with it. I didn't think anything of it. I thought, okay, that sounds like fun. It's just a video on YouTube. Who cares? But then it became something that was expected, and then it got out of control. Got out of control pretty quickly because you realised, how easy it was to rile up certain fans from certain countries. It was too easy. So yeah, then it was definitely an entertainment factor involved because it was hilarious.
I mean, I understand, but how much of, and I don't know if you look at this data, but like, have you felt that if you name a title a certain way, the potential of it getting views changes significantly.
Yeah, I've actually tested this many times. I've actually taken down a video, re-uploaded it straight away with a different title, and yeah, through the roof. I've done this several times, where a video had, say, 2,000 views, and that turns into 2.5 million in 3 days with a different title.
Wow.
Yeah, which is crazy because the same footage.
No wonder.
But I guess it's all just marketing, isn't it?
Can you give an example? Which one was it? Like one of them?
Actually, that video, just go back a sec, the video was Hamang Badani's 100 against Australia in 2001. I just uploaded it, with the title, Hamang Badani, 100 against Australia. Got, 2,000 views. Renamed it to Forgotten Genius India Innings Stuns Australia.
Yeah. Because I clicked on the Forgotten Genius. Yeah. I watched
4 million views. 4 million views. Like,
on that note, we often talk in this pod about the way we watch cricket and the way, like, the things that we see or the things for which we see cricket now has changed over time. Initially, as young kids and teenagers, we'd watch for like India to win, basically, right? Like it was all about the team sport. But now we'd watch a Kane Williamson innings as happily, a Soumya Sarkar innings as happily, because it's just beautiful cricket. For you, has that, like, when you see cricket, how much of it is partisan to see how Australia is doing, and how much of it is just because cricket is beautiful?
I think the perception has changed when social media became so big, because prior to that, I didn't even care if Australia won or not. You just watched the cricket because it was on. But then seeing the, monstrously crazy reactions on social media definitely changes the way you watch the game, because they're even putting the reactions on the screen from Twitter, during the telecast.
Yeah.
So you can't even escape what people are actually thinking at home. So that's really annoying, because you don't want to be told how to watch the game. I don't want to know that some dude's really angry from 2 overs ago who's sitting on a couch in Sri Lanka. I don't care at all. And then the commentators start talking about it. You're like, I don't want to be on Twitter and watch the TV and have that all in the same package. So that's really annoying. But generally these days, I mean, I'm 42. I've seen Australia win everywhere in the world and win World Cups many times. I don't care. I mean, it doesn't make any difference at all to me. I mean, it'd be nice to win in India again. But I've seen it. It was good. It's like the Ashes in England. I could not even care if we lose the Ashes every time until I die. I've seen it enough times. It's the same thing.
So really, I mean, you're saying this about the Ashes, which is coming from an Aussie. I'm actually kind of surprised.
Just cricket, I mean, the media build-up is it's stupid. I mean, the Ashes is great, but I don't want to be forced into liking a series more just because the media tells me to, and I get just as much enjoyment out of seeing Australia England as Australia Sri Lanka, or West Indies versus South Africa. Actually, I prefer watching the neutral tests more than Australia tests. My favourite series to watch are like England West Indies, South Africa India. In the 90s, it was West Indies versus South Africa was really huge. Just all these random matchups. England India is good. England New Zealand always seems really interesting, and you get the different commentary teams too. You're not just stuck with the same Aussie guys,
Yeah.
And the coverage in the different countries is awesome. I mean, England and New Zealand have great coverage for tests.
Yeah,
For
England do, but again, I mean, like from what I have watched, again, as you said, it's all media hype and all. But a lot of their ex cricketers also, like English ex cricketers, I'm talking about. Um, Somehow, I get the feeling that they just live for the Ashes. I don't know how much it is
English
just the
cricketers too,
marketing
I
or
think.
yeah,
I think that, yeah.
Yeah, it seems that way. I'm not sure how much of it is real, but just recently listening to and watching the video podcast that they've been
Sky.
putting up on the Sky site. I mean, it's pretty much ashes, ashes, ashes.
yeah,
And but then again, Australia plays England so often, and they're long Test series.
yeah.
I mean that's a whole other topic, but there is a difference in enjoyment seeing a 5 Test series. I mean, they happen so infrequently now, and some countries have never played one.
Yeah.
I mean, when was the last time India played a 5 Test series? I mean, even I can't remember. Was it 91, 92?
No, against England, I think all India England series would be 5 tests from now on,
Yeah, it's
probably.
good.
For
And
me,
potentially India Australia next year too. So yeah.
I hope
for
so.
me, anything that involves Bangladesh is a must-watch. I no, it's seriously because first of all, I just love rooting for them, and I also love seeing the passion, and I also love the trolls that there are. But that brings me to this leads me to a different question. Every time that I see highlights of like the video that I talked about, I and we've talked about this a lot of times, but you cannot help but think how would it have been, let's say, if McGrath and Dale Steyn were bowling from both ends to a batsman like Gavaskar, right? How would he have dealt with something like that? So, for you, what makes a segment of cricket appealing, irrespective of the team playing? And this is more of an like a hypothetical, fantastical question. But if you had to curate like a 10-minute video of cricket that you'd put on YouTube, what should it ideally have in terms of a complete cricketing package?
Well, I guess you know everyone likes to see the best bowlers against the best batsmen. I mean, there's been several really awesome matchups over the last 30 years. Some hyped more than others, but obviously Sachin and Warne in '98.
I mean, that
Anytime
wasn't a competition. I mean, come on.
it did end up being a competition, but Lara McGrath was always, interesting, mostly because Lara failed. But when he didn't fail, it was spectacular. I mean, he either got nothing or 200, and that was always pretty awesome. But and seeing guys come into the game like McGrath and then Dale Steyn and Alan Donald, and seeing which of the best batsmen they're going to have a good time or a bad time against. Uh, you know, Glenn McGrath didn't have much success against Ijaz Ahmed, for instance. Who would have thought? You know, um, but yeah, got Lara out easily. I mean, Mike Atherton probably couldn't believe that finally Merv Hughes goes away, and then all of a sudden Glenn McGrath's going to get him out 19 times in the next decade. So yeah, but if I was going to make a hypothetical video, I think I think you'd want a mix of bowler dominating and batsman dominating. Something like what would have happened maybe in Sydney 99-2000, where Tendulkar was really starting to get on McGrath, a few fours, but then that high LBW, and you thought, just when you could have had finally the release, because it had been a bad series up to that point.
Was it Adelaide, right? Or Sydney?
No, I'm talking about Sydney. He hit McGrath with three fours in the over, and then got a high LBW. I think it was just going over, but he hit him for 3 fours. And he thought, a few more overs of this, and we could have had a real good contest. In the end, it was Laxman in the second innings that provided that contest. But yeah, I think that's what you want, a mix of both.
what is it about modern day cricket that bugs you a lot? Is there a trend in modern day cricket?
I think it would just be the ease of which batsmen hit boundaries, and just if you can compare the commentary to sixes back in the 80s and 90s to now, I mean, it's embarrassing. It's pretty average.
The Danny Morrison like commentary.
Oh my god! But you know, or just any six in the IPL is embarrassing.
Agree.
But
It's not even a 6, right? It's either a DLF maximum or a Yes Bank maximum. It's
So, like for instance, in the 80s and 90s, if there was a 6 in a batsman's innings, that's a big deal. I mean, you're calling your mates going, "Oh my god, did you just see that?" Like, Viv Richards hit a 6. I mean, that was exciting when Viv hit a 6. I mean, of course he was going to hit 6s. It was still exciting. When batsmen are hitting, 10 sixes themselves in an innings, you just think, come on. I mean, so yeah, that definitely takes and the fact that the grounds are always roped off, even when they're small. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, Adelaide Oval can't get any shorter on the square boundaries. You don't need a rope. And I guess just the poor quality of commentators in general across the board, because there's some shockers.
Because you have cheerleaders these days and not
exactly. Yeah, that's annoying.
So something which really bugs us generally about cricket these days is that we no longer have these tri-series and multi-nation series anymore, right?
Yeah.
So you genuinely don't get to see a lot of neutral cricket. So something recently which I actually came across through your video and something which I've never been able to find online is the Titan Cup and the Australia-South Africa games in that series, right?
Yeah.
So you had, I think, put up a 5 or 6 minute review of that series or something like that.
That's right.
So you no longer get to see something of that kind, right? For example, the tri-series that used to happen in Australia at start of the year.
I definitely miss it. I actually put up a video of the final from the Titan Cup. It was about an hour and a half long video. And that went down well. Everyone loved that because you got to see something in full. But I try and stay away from any full highlights because that gets the attention of the boards. But yeah, the tri series in Australia got stale, and it had to end. They brought it back.
Was it financial viability?
It was a mixture of things. No one showing up to the neutral matches, which was always a thing anyway. The fact that Channel 9 didn't want to show it, any of the neutral matches. So, for instance, when they brought it back for that one season when India and Sri Lanka played, and all of the neutral matches were on a second channel and not on the main channel, which back then was a bit embarrassing. Now it doesn't matter because most of the stations here have multiple digital channels, but yeah, and the fact that it was getting harder to organise because cricket is so packed in the schedule. They, for instance, South Africa wanted to stop touring here in the Christmas time as they were hosting their own Boxing Day test. So there's been so many struggles with the cricket board trying to get the ideal tri-series so they don't have a repeat of like Australia, Zimbabwe, England in '94, where they had to introduce Australia A.
I'd love. So I'm sorry to cut you off, but those are the kind of series though that I love to watch highlights of because that's just so different from the way cricket is now. To have Australia A play in I'd love something like that to happen now.
Yeah, well, everyone loves it now, but back then it was interesting, but it was quickly swept under the carpet. Now people look back all these years later and go, "Wow, how good was that?" And it was pretty cool, especially when the Australia A team was essentially the real Australian team even 4 years later. Martin, Ponting, Langer, Hayden, Gilchrist, you couldn't believe it. Yeah, these all these players. I think what's disappointing for me is that there's certain tri-series matchups we never got. Like, I would have loved to see an Australia, South Africa, West Indies, or Australia, England, and South Africa for a tri-series.
That would have been amazing.
Like, but there was always one team generally that made it bad. Like, I thought when the West Indies toured here in 2000, we had Zimbabwe, West Indies, Australia, and everyone knew Zimbabwe weren't at their worst, but yeah, it got smashed.
There was that one. There was that one New Zealand, South Africa, Australia one.
Yeah,
also,
that
right?
was
Which
good.
I think I keep going back to that. Like Chris Kenson had a good innings in one of them. Klusner was there, so yeah.
Well, what's funny is 3 times we had that tri-series. We had it in 93, 94, 97, 98, and 2001, 2002, which was really weird to have 3 tri-series with the same teams.
But both the 2001, 2002 and the 97 ones were classics, right? So there is one in which I think Dion Nash almost pulls off a win. Yep. And South Africa in a very reddish-green jersey of
That's 2001, I think.
No, that's
97. Yeah.
97, right?
Yeah.
So both of them were actually memorable. So
yeah, absolutely.
That is like, for example, I go back and search for a lot of Kenya games, and there's something that we'll never probably get to see again. And it's interesting that cricket at least was more democratic at the face of it, because you had India, Kenya, and South Africa in a tri-series, or India, Zimbabwe, and South Africa in a tri-series. So you'd never have something like that ever again in the sport, right? So that's
it's never going to happen.
Quite disappointing.
And plus now with this, you would pick, say, the top 4 or 5 teams. You could almost do any mix of those 5. Would be really awesome viewing. I mean, imagine if New Zealand hosted a tri-series of New Zealand, India, Pakistan. That'd be magnificent.
India and Pakistan are not going to play, my friend.
That would be so cool. But yeah, that particular tri-series would never happen.
A matchup that would have been great in early 90s would have been Australia, South Africa, West Indies, and then in the late 90s would have been Australia, South Africa, Pakistan.
Yeah,
that would have been some good cricket.
Well, there was a really great series in 1990, the Rothmans Cup, Australia, India, New Zealand. That was pretty cool. I think it was Tendulkar's first time he played against Australia. But yeah, that's a good matchup. But yeah, I don't think that ever happened again, that particular.
Is it like, so one potential way of making it viable would be to have one subcontinent side in a tri-series every year? And probably then the neutral games would not be as unviable, maybe? Or do you think even that was out of question anymore?
Well, the fact that pretty much all countries have scrapped a tri-series now, so that says it all, right? So it's at first it was just Australia who did it, and now, not that most countries had a regular tri-series anyway. I mean, England...
South Africa and England did.
Yeah, I was going to say England and South Africa did. I was surprised that England gave up so quick. They didn't even try for that long. It was like 98 was their first one with South Africa and Sri Lanka. And then the last one,
2005 was
it?
Yeah,
I think around
before
then.
the Ashes?
Yeah.
The one in which Bangladesh beat Australia.
Yes, that's right, yeah.
Yeah. Ashraful.
And so, yeah, they didn't even give it 10 years. So that was frustrating. But you would think the only way to make the one-day game watchable would be to bring back something like that, because who cares about just some random 3-match series?
Yep.
I mean, when New Zealand came here in March for the 3 matches, I was pretty happy that they ended up being cancelled after the first one, because who cares? Like,
Australia flew down to India for a 3-game series in the middle of the Australian summer.
That was stupid. So, stupid. Like, that's crazy. Just they should have had Australia, India, New Zealand for a tri-series. Then that would have been amazing.
Yeah.
So, regarding that, like, since you've been watching and following cricket for so long, what are like 2 or 3 iconic series from the Aussie summer that comes to your mind, like which you absolutely love to see?
I always liked the 88, 89 Australia West Indies series summer. That mostly in terms of the coverage it was evolving pretty quickly in the 80s, but you had a great West Indies team, you had a young fired-up Australian team, and the commentators were just on fire that season. Bill Laurie was at his best, the MCG was packed for the one-dayers. just the atmosphere was just fantastic. Imran Khan smashing, Ambrose for 6 at Hobart. There's all the contests were awesome. That series was great. I quite liked the 1991 summer when New Zealand and England came over. There was just Mark Waugh debuted in the Test matches. That was pretty huge. And then I'm not sure, but those are 2 that I've liked from a long time ago. But recently, not been much to talk about. But quite liked
the Mitch Johnson Ashes.
Yeah, I guess it was good. I quite liked 2004-05 when Pakistan toured, and that one-day series there, that tri-series with Pakistan, West Indies, Australia. That was pretty good. Shahid Afridi was in awesome form. So was Lara and Gilchrist.
Was that the same one where they had a match in an indoor stadium once? Was it like Afridi had hit the roof or something? I remember.
Yeah, that was 2005-06, the next summer.
Okay.
Where they couldn't play at the MCG, so all the matches were at the Telstra Dome, and they had the roof up. And that was Australia, Sri Lanka, South Africa. I was actually just watching that over the last few days. Would you believe it or not?
There was no Pakistan in there?
Pakistan
I
played
remember Afridi hitting the roof once.
That was in England. He hit the roof.
This is Mike Hussey hit the roof once, right?
Mike Hussey hit the roof in Melbourne, and Shahid Afridi hit the roof in England. It was actually in a soccer stadium. A few years later, I think. That actually just came up just recently. People talking about it on Twitter, and all these people thought it was in Melbourne, but no, he never played.
I think it's one of those things, Mandela effect, as they call it. You remember something else happening. Because a lot of people, even when Nishant brought it, I also somehow had in mind that it was Melbourne where Afridi did this. I don't know.
It was in the UBL T20 series, England Pakistan. It was.
Yeah, see, and this is why it pays to have you on the pod, because clearly you have a wealth of experience and much better memory than any of us.
Well, there was a video that said Shahidi hits the roof in Melbourne, and that got millions of views. So it just got, but
fake news.
But it's saying he's playing for the World 11. He's got a Pakistan uniform on. It's not even, everything is fake about it.
So the Telstra Dome later became the Marvel Stadium, is it?
Correct.
It's the same venue, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And with that, it was great having you here. And it's been more than 1 hour, and I know we promised you an hour. But before we let you go, we have a tradition anytime a guest comes. So anything that you'd recommend our listeners, it could be a specific highlight video that you've put up, it could be a Netflix show that you're watching, or it could be a book that you're reading. Anything that you'd recommend to our listeners.
I'd recommend a YouTube channel, but they all keep getting shut down recently. I think it's been 5 or 6 shut down over the last couple of days. So we'll go with Netflix.
Sure.
I quite like a show called The Blacklist, which I think season 8 is out at the moment, and I think that's pretty good. Not the best thing I've ever seen in my life, but it's certainly.
How big is the show Rake in Australia? Have you seen Rake?
Yeah, Rake's one of my favourite shows ever because the guy is just so funny.
Has he? Yeah.
I mean, tears every time I watch it. It's so funny.
He's great, and I accidentally stumbled on that show at some point a few years ago, and I have watched every episode, and
it's
that
hilarious.
kind of got me hooked. Then I ended up watching. There's another Australian show where there's this woman who realizes that every person that she's ever dated is dying off, and then remember. But it's a fun show. To anyone who's listening, please give Rake a watch on Netflix.
Yeah,
it's on
definitely.
Netflix.
Especially because his swearing is so hilarious.
And there's a strategically placed cricket bat in his son's room that I always notice.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's very, very, very well written and acted.
And with that, thank you, Rob. Thank you, Aditya. And thank you, Nishant.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.